Hello everybody. Just wondered, do you enjoy cooking or baking with your parents? Billy says he loves to bake cakes. During the last few weeks I've spent a lot of time in the kitchen making cheese and onion pies, apple pies and cakes for the family. When I was young I used to watch my mum and my grandma, and I quickly learned that the first thing I needed to begin was a good recipe. That's right, Billy. My grandma had a recipe book, and that recipe book was all recipes that she had written in it. So who can tell me why it is important when you're baking to begin with a recipe? That's right, Billy. We need a recipe so we know what to put in the baking. We need to know the ingredients, and we also need to know how much of each of those ingredients to put in. And if we don't follow that recipe exactly, what might happen? That's right. If we put too much ingredients in, the cakes might not taste right good. We maybe put too much sugar in and they'd be too sweet, or put too much flour in and they just wouldn't work. But do you know, God has given us a recipe on how to live our lives. That's right, Billy. We can find that recipe in the Bible. The Bible contains all the ingredients that we need to live a life full of blessings. And who wrote that recipe? That's right, God wrote that recipe. Just like a baker decides which ingredients to put together for that perfect treat, God has decided what we need in our lives and determined what we need to make our lives better. It's important to know God didn't write that recipe so that our lives would be boring or hard to live. God wrote his recipe for life to help us know how to live happier and healthier lives. Sometimes we can think that God's rules are hard to follow. Maybe there are too many ingredients. Or sometimes we get confused about how much of each ingredient to use. But the truth is, if we follow God's recipe exactly, we can be greatly blessed. And we are so lucky because God gave us more than the Bible to help us. He gave us more to understand how to live a godly life. That's right, Billy. God gave us the perfect example in Jesus, his son. He sent Jesus to this earth to show us how to live and how to follow God's recipe and God's rules. So, God gathered the ingredients, God wrote the recipe, God gave us rules, and God sent his son as a living example to show us how to follow those rules. Now what God wants is for us to live our lives the way he intended according to his recipe. And if we do that, we will live lives that are full of blessings. Blessings for us if we follow God's recipe. So it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Billy.